Hi, I'm Daniel Likis, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's a retired or certified executive and retirement coach, and the author of the book Retired and Killin It. None other than Miss Lisa Haynes.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. It's great to be here.
Welcome, Miss Lisa on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Absolutely. So, Daniel, I am a retired Chief Financial Officer and Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. I retired just over a year ago. And it was when I stepped out of corporate, the C-suite, decided I was going to retire. It seemed like a great opportunity to just relax and kind of enjoy the fruits of my labor. And it was probably about 4 weeks in that I realized that I had a great financial plan for retirement, but I didn't have a plan for everything else. No one told me about the identity issues, the purpose issues, the other things that come up that are non-financial related to retirement. And so I started to do some research, while I was doing my executive coaching certification, ran into a certification called retirement coaching, which is on the non-financial side and helps people create a plan for how they're going to live for the next 20, 30 years. Retirement is a long time. And I don't think we realize it until we step into it. And so as a result of that, I wrote this book, Retired and Killin It, came up with a formula that really provides a framework for how people can think about retirement, post that paycheck, post that big career, and think about what they're going to do with purpose for the next 20, 30 years of their life. It's their next season. It's their next chapter. A great opportunity to make it the best chapter yet.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Lisa. Thank you. The title adds Killing It is an energetic, almost aggressive phrase for retirement. What mindset shift does it represent from a traditional view of retirement as a winding down?
Daniel, when you look up retirement, or if you, ask Google to find you pictures or images of retirement, what you get is lawn chairs on the beach. You get people, playing checkers. You get all kinds of very calm, very, looks to me, boring things that you do in retirement. And for me, Killing It says the opposite. It says, I am energized to step into my next season and do everything that I haven't been able to do yet. And so, people think about, I want to travel, I want to, spend time with my grandkids. Killing It says, think bigger. It's what are the things that you've always wanted to do and you never had the time to do? When we're working takes up a lot of time. It really does. I mean, I don't think people realize that we probably work between working and sleeping. That is most of our day. And so now that you have this big chunk of time available, what will you do with it? And I think we can identify things bigger than checkers and bigger than just sitting, in a nice lawn chair watching the sunset. Those are fabulous things. I think everyone should enjoy what they enjoy. But I want people to think bigger about retirement in terms of what do I want to do? What mark do I want to make on the world? What's going to be my legacy? The end of working does not mean the end of legacy. It's actually the beginning of the next part of your legacy.
Definitely your legacy to the world. You talk about the ultimate retirement plan. Is the
Hmm.
ultimate goal freedom, purpose, wealth,
Yes.
vitality, or a specific blend of this? How do you define it?
Yeah, I think for me, retirement is the blend. It is finding purpose, finding your passion, and having the freedom to do it all. And so, if you're passionate about traveling, you now have the freedom. What I love about being retired now is I get to decide. And so, there are days when I am heads down and I'm working on what I call Reiki, retiring and killing it. There are other times when I'm just not feeling like I want to work today. And so I may take a Netflix and chill day, or just, find the shows that I'm binging and watch those, get a couple movies in. And then there are other days when I want to spend the day doing things that are, a little bit more active. So I'll spend some time at the gym, and then maybe I'll do some shopping or whatever. But the issue is that you have the opportunity to do whatever you want. And I think that's where the freedom comes in. But without a plan, it can easily become boredom. And there's some statistics out there saying that, of the people who are retired or have been retiring, there's, 20% are going back to work because they're bored. I hope to help stop that trend of people going back to work because they're bored, but help them to find other things to do besides go back to work. I say go back to work if you want to, and because retirement isn't for you, but don't go back because you're bored and you can't think of anything else to do.
Yes, there's a lot of things to do. For many, retirement is a source of anxiety. Miss Lisa,
Yeah.
not excitement. How does your plan directly address the big fears out without living money, losing identity, or declining health?
Mhm. So I think one of the issues, Daniel, is that people think about the from. So what are they retiring from? And so if you're always living in the past, you're always looking backwards, thinking about and processing where you came from. You're not looking forward. They say there's a reason the rear view mirror shows you the back, but you can't be looking in the rear view mirror and looking forward at the same time. And so I think it's a matter of redirecting people to the place where they're starting to think about the to what. I call it the from what to what transition. And it's really important that people figure out what's their to what. Where am I going? And so one of the in the acronym, one of the letters, the first I stands for imagine what's next. Helping people to see beyond where they came from and start thinking about what they're going to do next. Because if you're excited about what's next, you start to forget about what's behind. People ask me all the time, would you be interested in going back to work? And I said, I can't. I have so much to do. I have way too much to do to go back to work. And so I think that's where people get the excitement, and you tap down your anxiety if you can figure out what's next for me. Where am I going now? As opposed to just spending a lot of time ruminating on where I came from.
Yes. Empowering answer, Miss Lisa. You likely challenge the myth of the magic number. If it's not single savings target, what should people be focusing on building the 10 years before their retirement date?
I always tell people there isn't a magic number because it's different for all of us. And so, what you really need to start with is how much you're going to spend in retirement, because that determines how much you need to live on retirement. And so, helping people to really identify what's my retirement budget. It's not as easy as, some financial plans would tell you you're going to spend 80% of your salary. So that's what you need to retire on. Well, that depends, right? If you're not spending 100% of your salary now, you're not going to necessarily need 80 when you retire, because that assumes that you spend everything that comes in. If you're one of those people who budgets well and right now you really only spend 60%, then you may need 80% of the 60%. And so it's really about the math of, let's go down to the detail. Let's figure out what are your fixed costs. Like, if you're still going to have a mortgage, are you still going to have car payments, which hopefully by the time you get to retirement, you've gotten rid of some of that, those installment payments, right? You don't want to have that recurring payment. Hopefully by the time you get there, you have just your mortgage, you've paid down credit cards. All of that is a focus, the 10 years before you retire. And then let's look at your fixed cost versus your variable cost. Let's get to the detail. Let's dig them out. I work with my clients. We detail out what are you going to spend? And then we're going to add some inflation to that. We're going to start to decrease some costs over time. Other costs are going to increase, like medical. We want to make sure you're covered on your medical. Do you have medical retiree, or are you going to need to invest in something? So all of that in the detail helps people to figure out, even if you're 10 years out, it gives you a projection of how much I'm going to need for retirement at the big picture level. And then as you get closer, you begin to refine that.
The biggest mistake, Miss Lisa, in your research and experience, what is the single most common and costly financial mistake people make when planning for retirement? What your book aims to correct?
I think the biggest mistake is we focus only on the financial piece. And so, even with our jobs, employers teach you how to and help you save for retirement. They're going to match your 401k, 403b, whatever type of plan your organization has. And so they're helping you. They bring in the financial consultant who's talking with you about, what you need to retire. The problem is when people reach retirement, they then get, as you said, anxious and fearful. And so, because employers and we're not preparing for the other side of retirement, you have people who stay in jobs longer than they should. If you think about it, there are people who's, I'm going to retire in the next year or two. And then that year or two comes and they get a little bit afraid and they decide, I'm going to push that out. I'm going to wait. I'm going to retire 2 years. The problem is then you have organizations who have people in there who have either retired in place or people who their skill set doesn't necessarily match where the organization is going, but you don't want to be you don't want to be accused of ageism. So obviously you're not saying everybody over a certain age is, should retire if you don't have a mandatory retirement age. But if you give people the information up front of when you start to approach that, here are the things that you want to start thinking about, help people plan for that retirement process, you'll have less people just hanging on because they're not sure what they're going to do. And I think that's why a lot of people don't retire when they feel like it's kind of getting to that time, because they're thinking to themselves, what will I do in that next 20 to 30 years? I'll just stay here for 5 more years. That decreases the amount of time. And so for a lot of people, it is not financial. It is really about trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And until I do, I'll just stay here and continue to work.
Miss Lisa, your book emphasizes creating reliable income streams. What is the unconventional or often overlooked income strategy you champion that goes beyond the standard 4% rule?
Yeah, I think that people underestimate kind of building the portfolio and having it be flexible, right? One of the things I think that is short for a lot of people is actual cash. So people will retire and they'll have their pension. They may, soon to be collecting Social Security. They may soon to collect an annuity, but they don't have actual cash. And so I think when people retire, you do need an actual pot of cash, because there are expenses that will come up that need immediate funding. And to avoid the kind of quick drawdowns from those other investment places or your pension, having cash on hand is really important. And so I think that that's one of the things that people mistake, is not building a little bit of a cash portfolio, not a ton of cash, because obviously you don't want a lot of cash sitting in a bank that's not earning any kind of significant interest or return. But I do think there's an important thing to have, to continue to have the 6 months worth of emergency expenses sitting in cash.
Interesting. Miss Lisa, thank you for those empowering answers. What's your firm stance on entering retirement with debt, particularly mortgages? Is it always a bad idea or are there nuances?
Well, I think that people will enter retirement with a mortgage if you own a home. And I don't think that that's a bad idea. People ask about, should I pay off my mortgage before? I get this question a lot. Should I pay off my mortgage before I retire? I always say it depends. So I have a 2.5% interest rate on my mortgage. So I will probably never pay off my mortgage. I will wait until I bleed it out. Why?
Mhm.
Because I can always earn more than 2.5% on money. And so even in a bad market, I'm probably still gonna, over time earn 2.5%. And so it depends on what your rate is. If you have a high interest rate, it's certainly worth considering whether you should pay off your mortgage. Because if you're paying in the 6, 7, 8% mortgage rate, you're probably going to have difficulty earning more than that You can obviously returns in the market can be good, but then there could be a year that they're bad. Overall, they're 5 to 8%. But if they're ranging in the 6%, you're paying more interest on your mortgage, and so it may be worth it. But again, you don't want to bleed, and so it's a really fine balance. The other debt, I'm always very hesitant to advise people to retire when they have significant other debt. I think credit card debt is one of those debts that you really should have paid off before you retire if you have significant credit card debt. Because again, you now don't have disposable income when you retire. You want to base your retirement income on living versus trying to pay down debt. So if you have credit card debt, I always advise to pay down credit card debt. And so I think that people should be very careful about stepping into retirement with debt, because now you're using the income that you've saved for retirement to pay off expenses that you incurred when you were working. And so I really do believe that there's a strong argument for get yourself out of as much debt as you can before you retire. It may not work for everybody to get out of debt completely, but get out of as much debt as you can, and try to go into retirement with at least at only just your mortgage.
Yes, definitely. And the what now moment, Miss Lisa. The first Monday of retirement can be daunting. What is your practical first step for someone who has the financials in order but feels lost about how to structure their newfound time and identity?
The first thing I like to tell people is to do something I did not do. If I could do it all over again, give yourself permission to do nothing for a certain period of time. And so, because when you get into retirement, because you've been working at a certain pace, particularly people who are in C-suite or executive jobs, uh, you've been working at a certain pace. And so your mind and your body want to keep working at that pace. They want to keep telling you you're supposed to be doing something. And so the first thing I tell people is figure out how much time you're going to give yourself permission to do nothing. And by nothing, I mean the things that you've been trying to do, whether it's projects in your house or get to the gym and get a regular routine going. All of the things that when you're working, you say, boy, if I had more time, I'd do this, right? So spend time figuring out what that is. It may be for some people 3 months, maybe it's 6 months, but give yourself time to just decompress from working for 30 to 40 years. And after that period of time, or even during that period of time, I like to start with people of the imagine what's next. And this is where you get real curious and you start to set big goals, new goals for yourself. They don't have to be big, new goals for yourself. What are some things what's on your bucket list, as an example? What are things that you've always wanted to do? And so just to give people, the first step for me is to let people dream. Just let them dream about all the things. And what's interesting is adults have difficulty dreaming about what they want to do because we've been in action and movement mode so long that, unlike children, we don't sit down and think about, if I had all the money in the world, I would do this. And so that's where we're at retirement. Maybe you don't have all the money in the world, but you have all the time in the world. What would you do with all that time? And so that is the first step for people. It's maybe not the Monday you stop working, because that Monday, I suggest that you celebrate the fact that you don't have to get up for work and stay in the bed as long as you want and relax and just take the Monday to do nothing. And then figure out, what's the first trip I'm going on? Because the first trip after retirement is fantastic. To know that when you come back from that first vacation, you don't have to go back to work. It is a wonderful feeling. It is an absolutely great feeling. I had the opportunity to go, a few months after I retired, to go on a Mediterranean cruise. And the best part about that was I didn't have to think about the plan. So we went to Barcelona a few days before. It was fantastic. We came back. I didn't have to worry about getting up to work or figuring out if I was going to take some days off. None of that. It's a wonderful feeling. And so I tell people to enjoy that first, 4 or 5 months in particular, to say, I've earned it. I've worked hard and I've earned this time.
Yes. I did it. I did it.
Yes, absolutely.
You will
Celebrate
then.
yourself. I did it.
Celebrate, celebrate, people. So,
Yes.
Miss Lisa, what are your short-term and long-term goals as an author?
So my short-term goals are to continue to do what I'm doing, to identify more opportunities to spread my message, speaking opportunities, really places where I can go where people need to hear this message. My long-term goal is to really make Retired and Killin It really the message around retirement, to really shift gears or shift the messaging around retirement to be less about retirement and more about reinvention, to have people feel like retirement is something to be excited about, so much so that they can't wait to retire. And people say now, I can't wait to retire, but they don't really know what that means because they don't have a plan. They just know they don't want to get up for work every day. But to have people say, I'm so excited about what's next. I can't believe I worked this long. I have to hurry up and retire so I can get to what I'm supposed to do after this. That's my long-term goal, is to really shift the way people think about retirement.
Yes. Good luck to that, Miss Lisa, and looking forward for more success.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Yeah, my piece of advice is find the thing you're passionate about. I found this, I stumbled into it, I should say. I can't even say I found it. I stumbled into this. My background is I'm a career finance person. So this doesn't particularly align 100%. The finance piece of it does, the financial planning piece of it. But the other side of it is a little bit more HR-ish. But find what you're passionate about, because when you find what you're passionate about, it almost takes over, right? It almost takes you to the next level of, wow, I'm really excited about this. And for some people, it may be, I found the best volunteering opportunity and I'm really excited about this. And I love going in to do this. And so whatever that thing is for you that you can find that you're passionate about and excited about, once you find that, you will find that retirement becomes so much more fulfilling. When you have a plan on the things you're going to do, find your group, find your tribe, continue to be social. Retirement has a way of isolating people. Don't let that happen to you. Continue to be social and working in groups and finding spaces where you can continue to express yourself and be yourself.
Yes. Be yourself, people. Enjoy the
Yes.
moment. Definitely enjoy the moment. And thank you for that advice, Miss Lisa. And can you please recommend a book of books that influence your journey?
Recommend what?
Recommend a book of books that influence your journey.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm actually reading a couple of books right now, but one of the books that influenced my journey, I think the most, more recently was, surprise question because I have to think of the name of the book. Um, gosh,
No worries at all.
uh, that's a trick question. It just left me. Let me come back to that question.
No worries at all. So, your aha moment, what personal experience or client story become the non-negotiable core lesson that you knew had to be foundation of this book?
Yeah, I was speaking with someone and he mentioned that his wife told him that he was the worst retired person because
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to go back to work. He couldn't figure out what to do. And I said, it's not that you actually want to go back to work. You want to find purpose and you want to find meaning again. And so you may not actually want to work full time. You need to figure out what's the portfolio of work that you're going to do over the next 6 to 8 months that's going to keep you intact, that's going to keep you moving. And so that's when I realized, and he was, an SVP in an organization. That's when I realized this is a good message for people, because it wasn't that he was dying to go back to work. He was dying to figure out what was next. What's next for me?
What next for me?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's a big question. What next for me?
Yeah.
Something good. And Miss Lisa, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season,
Okay.
abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in third season, and my food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography
Cool.
101 love letters, mental health. Now, Movie 101 review, Music 101, our fourth season, Science 101, Sex 101, second season, and my baby podcast, Mental Health 101, Law 101, Bible Verses 101, and Entrepreneurship 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Lisa, 10 years into
Thank
retirement,
you.
build on your plan. What would you hope someone feels, experiences, and has achieved, the would may say, they are truly killing it.
I would say if you have found something that brings you joy, and that when
Yeah,
you're in your season of retirement, you feel joy, you are killing it.
definitely. Definitely, you're killing it, people. Enjoy life because life is too short.
Absolutely.
And Miss Lisa Hines, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the
Thank
world.
you.
Thank you. And can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your book, or any projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me. I'm easy to find. You can find me on Facebook at Retired and Killin It, Instagram Retired and Killin It. No G on any of those. My website is www.retiredandkillinit.com. You can find my book, as you see, on Amazon. So join me at any of the. There'll be a list on my website of places I'm speaking or have spoken. I'd love for someone to join me. You can reach out to me at Lisa at retiredandkillinit.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Lisa Hines because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering, killing it will rise. So, Miss Lisa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Daniel.
Modicum people, see you soon.